So why use Twitter? Twitter is without question one of the most active, popular social platforms on the web. The platform has about 310 million monthly active users and an additional 550 million monthly viewers who don't log into their accounts, but merely consume other people's tweets. About 1/3 of all US social media users are on Twitter, and 80% of active users access the site via mobile. Somewhere around 500 million tweets are sent per day, which adds up to about 6,000 tweets per second. Businesses haven't missed out on the utility of Twitter. About 65% of US companies who have 100+ employees are marketing on Twitter. There's good reason for this. The average Twitter user follows 5 businesses. 80% of Twitter users have mentioned a brand in their tweets. 77% feel more positive about a brand when their tweet is replied to by a business, and 54% have taken some kind of action, such as a purchase, sign up, visiting a site, after seeing a brand mentioned in a tweet. So clearly, this is a powerful platform for any business. The question is, how can you leverage it? The first thing you have to do is develop a Twitter plan. Your Twitter plan should be in place before you even set up your Twitter account, so you can start implementing and sticking with it from day one. If you attack Twitter half-heartedly and without a plan, you'll do what too many entrepreneurs do. You'll eventually let your Twitter marketing peter out. Nobody wants to look like that embarrassing business whose last tweet was from 3 years ago, and there's a ton of those. So generally, you want to put down a plan in writing that covers your day-to-day activity on Twitter. For example, maybe you'll send out 2 tweets per day, Monday through Saturday. Maybe you or one of your team members will do these tweets manually each day. Otherwise, perhaps your weekly plan will include 1 hour every Sunday where you draft and schedule each of your tweets for the coming week using a social media scheduling tool like Warlord Social Suite, sort of an internet marketing-friendly version of Hootsuite. Then, maybe you plan on participating in Twitter chats once each week to grow your following and network. Finally, your plan should include at least a daily check-in, preferably more than once per day, in which you check for questions, mentions, retweets, etc., and reply to them accordingly. Next up, it's time to set up your Twitter account. Setting up your brand's Twitter account seems simple enough, but here are some important guidelines. Your Twitter name should be your actual name or business name, while your handle should either be your business name or something catchy that represents your business. Keep in mind, the handle is a nickname that you see after the @ sign, and it has a character limit, so your full name or business name might not fit as your handle in its entirety. Next, you'll want to set up a powerful bio. Your bio should do 2 things: accurately represent and introduce people to your brand, and also be optimized for search results. You're limited to 160 characters, so you'll need to choose carefully what you squeeze into your bio. Some important considerations for your bio are hashtags that you want people to find you with, a brand or business description, your mission or purpose, especially on Twitter, and maybe your job/position in your company if you've got a personal profile. After that, you'll want to choose a profile URL. Most businesses tend to simply put their homepage here. That's okay, but you should actually be aiming for something more special. Instead of your general homepage, try creating a landing page specifically for Twitter users who come to your site via your profile URL. This way they can see something relevant, and maybe you can collect leads and track how many of your leads come from Twitter. Or maybe you can make some sales or showcase a Twitter follower-specific offer of some sort. Finally, you'll want to iron out the visual representation of your brand by choosing a profile pic, a cover image, and a color scheme. Your profile pic could be your own portrait. Make it snazzy and professional, or your business logo. Your cover image should be catchy and fit well with the rest of your brand image. Consider throwing a call to action in there too. As for your colors, just make sure they match your brand and convey the feeling you want your followers to experience. The general idea with all these things is to keep your brand representation consistent across all your social media platforms. That's it for this video. If you're interested in that resource we mentioned earlier for scheduling all your tweets in advance, go ahead and check out Warlord Social Suite for more information. So the next step is to introduce yourself on Twitter with an initial tweet. Ideally, this should not be salesy. Opt instead for something catchy, funny, and/or helpful. And consider using an image relevant to your brand for that first tweet. Remember, this will be the first time people have seen your brand on Twitter. You don't want it to look like an annoying advertisement. Make that first impression a positive one. Once you've done that, it's time to start implementing your Twitter plan. Start drafting those daily tweets, and keep in mind this is about consistent social media exposure over time. Don't expect to become the biggest viral sensation on the web overnight. And don't be disappointed if, and when, you don't get much in the way of results in the very beginning. That will come later, but you have to stick to your plan. Here are some guidelines for your daily and weekly Twitter activities. Find a balance between promotional stuff and useful stuff, and lean more towards the latter. Throw a little bit of funny and entertaining into the mix from time to time as well. If you're out of ideas, don't hesitate to curate or share content from other entities like blog posts or articles, and always mention the source using the @ sign. That @ sign will notify the source of your post and can be a good way to foster goodwill and relationships. Another guideline is to include hashtags in most of your tweets. Make sure these are relevant and try not to throw in more than 2 or 3 in one tweet. Statistics show that if you include more than that, you risk annoying people and losing engagement. Also, be generous with retweets. Retweets are great because they're an easy way to fill your weekly tweet quota and can also foster goodwill and relationships with other Twitter users. Be sure to include a comment explaining why you're retweeting or what your thoughts are. The absolute key here is remain consistent. You've got to be doing this stuff every single day. If you're worried about not being able to keep up with it, or maybe staying consistent and avoiding procrastination is something that you struggle with, definitely consider checking out a resource like Warlord's Social Suite, which we mentioned in the last video. This will be a good way to take the amount of time you have to spend on Twitter each week and consolidate it into about a half hour or an hour every week, which will definitely help you stick to your Twitter marketing plan consistently. Once you've established a consistent routine, it'll be time to move on to the next video, which covers expanding your Twitter following. If you follow the guidelines in the previous chapter, then after a few days you should have at least a handful of followers. Now it's time to crank things up a notch. Let's go over some methods for building your following even more. First, follow relevant members of your market and you'll often get followed in return. Next, try to interact in real time throughout the day. This will become apparent to Twitter users and you'll appear as alert, responsive, and engaged. Pay close attention to trending hashtags and topics so you can leverage their momentum. Ensure you mention or cite people in tweets using the @ sign. Many will return the favor. What you tweet matters too. In addition to textual tweets or mentions of interesting articles, be sure to include some catchy media. Use relevant, attractive images. Include videos from time to time. Make it a point to proactively encourage engagement with questions and polls. This provokes responses and gives would-be followers the impression that you're there to listen, not just to talk. And yes, those cheesy quote images work too. All of these practices will increase engagement, sharing, and so on. In addition to these methods, it's important to follow some basic Twitter etiquette and maintain the following that you have. Although scheduling tools like Warlord's Social Suite are great for the majority of your activity, you should also make time for a bit of responsive, manual, real-time interaction during the week. People can tell when you're using your Twitter account as an automated advertising machine, and they'll unfollow you in a heartbeat. On a related note, don't ever purchase followers. You'll see others doing it, and you'll likely be tempted. But most of these followers will be bots, and you will destroy your brand and your reputation. Bottom line, if you're going to expand your following on Twitter, you need to come across as genuine and engaged. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll discuss how to achieve a return on investment for all this time and work you've put into your Twitter marketing. So you've put a ton of time, work, and perhaps money into your Twitter operations. Now it's time to capitalize on it. Remember, this is not a one-time thing, so don't suddenly ruin all the work you've done by abruptly trying to sell stuff to all of your followers. It won't work, and you'll have wasted everything. Instead, make this the normal. Stick to the plan. Keep building your audience. Gradually and gently start seeking a return on this investment. Remember what we said about balance? How the useful and entertaining stuff should be the norm while the salesy stuff should be the exception? Well, it's time to start thinking about that exception. Although Twitter can certainly bring in sales, it's best to just periodically use it to build your list and familiarize people with your content and your off-Twitter presence. Post tweets that link to a landing page designed to generate leads. Invite people to read your blog posts or articles, or to watch your videos. If you insist on selling things from time to time, just try to keep it to a minimum and maybe limit it to special deals or exciting new products. Bottom line, make sure you set your sights on remaining helpful and engaged. Stick to your daily or weekly Twitter plan. Make sure you're posting things that are useful or entertaining. And every now and then, try to work in maybe a soft pitch for a sale, or more often, just try to generate leads, grow your community, and familiarize people with your content and your brand. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into your battle plan. This guide has been pretty exhaustive, but it doesn't mean a thing unless you act on it and remain consistent. To that end, here's a quick battle plan that should get you on your way to Twitter marketing success. Step 1, develop your marketing plan. Remember, you want to do this before you even start posting on Twitter. Step 2, set up your account to match your branding. Keep in mind, for some users, this will be their first impression of your brand, and you also want to keep it consistent with all your other social media platforms. Step 3, start implementing your plan with daily tweets. Again, you can rely mostly on a scheduling platform like Warlord Social Suite, but also try to get in there and do some real-time engagement and interaction as well. It'll pay dividends for you in the long run. Step 4, diversify your tweeting style and content to maximize engagement and follower building. Don't just always throw out textual tweets. Include images, include videos, ask questions in your tweets, use polls, retweet people, cite people using the @sign, curate content from a blog or website and cite them as well. All these things will maximize engagement and follower building. Step 5, gently and subtly start achieving ROI by promoting your off-Twitter content, your free offers, and your special deals. The key word there is gently. Don't abruptly turn your Twitter account into an automated advertising platform. Stick to the plan, be helpful, useful, and entertaining, and gradually start achieving your return on investment by slowly turning your Twitter followers into leads and customers. So that's your 5-step battle plan. Don't do what most people do. Don't leave this course thinking, well, that sounds cool and I'll probably get to it eventually. Because guess what? There's a very good chance you'll just keep kicking this can down the road, and by the time you do get to it, you might have forgotten what you learned. The best thing you can do for your business right now is open up a Word document and start on step 1. Start putting down your marketing plan on paper, and then start implementing it today.